It's so great to have you guys on the show finally. I can't believe it. It's been too long.
I know, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Why don't you just introduce yourself to everyone and say what you do?
Yeah. So my name's Rosie. People know it's Roisin. People know me as Rosie in the business, and I own Nightjar, Oriole and Swift with Edmund, my husband and business partner. And we both grew up in London. I grew up in Finchley, and always wanted to be part of the central London scenes. So I think that's partly why I've ended up doing bars and entertainment places in central London. But I came from a very kind of arts-loving musical background, and born to an Irish mother and an Irish music-playing father, although he's British. And my dad really loved the big life of eating and drinking, and we hosted lots of parties at home with lots of live music and things. And so I really always grew up feeling that was the best of things. And I'm an amateur singer myself. And when Edmund and I were in Dublin, we were at Trinity in Dublin together. We would go and see shows, sort of jazz gigs and things. And there was one seminal one where it was a very kind of old school jazz gig in a very dingy pub. And literally the idea was, wouldn't it be great if you could see this in the environment that it was set in back in the 20s, 30s, etc. That was the seed of the idea. And obviously after that, that was Nightjar, what became Nightjar. And
Wait. You're going way too fast. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Lush life, we take it very slowly.
Well, that's how it started.
Right. We're gonna unpack a lot of that. All right. Edmund, why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. So
don't go so fast, all right? Don't go so fast.
I'm also London born and bred. Grew up in Islington and Highbury, to a mother and father who loved hosting, particularly my dad. He's the kind of guy who'll offer you a drink, and if you refuse, he'll have such a pained expression on his face that you end up accepting it anyway.
Was there a specific drink that he had that he would offer?
Moved through a lot over the years.
He's got very boozy Pimm's.
Yeah, that was
Basically,
probably
not very much Pimm's, lots of other things.
That's right, yeah. And a glass of. He's actually now really into Negronis, sometimes he'll offer you a Negroni with a little bit of soda water topped up, so it's barely even a drink.
It's 11 a.m.
Yeah. Someone who my father was someone who loves to show people a good time. And I think that seeing that over the years and enjoying it and being the beneficiary of it has been very formative for me, and kind of, what motivated me to get into hospitality.
Now, Rosie said you both went to Dublin, to university.
Yeah.
What were you going to study?
Well, we did study. We've both completed our 4 years there, and I did history of art and Spanish.
All right.
Edmund.
And I was English lit and Spanish.
And you just happened to meet there, or you knew each other beforehand?
We didn't know each other beforehand, but Edmund came a year after I was there, and then I was on a year off as part of my Spanish course, so I didn't meet him initially. And then in my third year, I met him through mutual friends.
We kind of got set up a little bit.
A little bit
set up. And when you went in, what were you thinking might be your careers?
Oh, I thought that I would like to be an art dealer. I think that was the general idea, but that was sort of one of them. I had lots of ideas, but that was certainly why I did that course.
I think, like many humanities degree holders, I did not have much of an idea. I think I went through film director, a non-profit director, banker, lawyer, maybe,
everything,
all sorts of ideas. But as happens, when you leave university, you do end up having to get a proper job quite quickly, and that's what we both did.
Yeah,
right. So you went to the seminal music hall, or what was it? It was a concert.
It was a very dingy pub on George's Street in Dublin, and it was an artist called
Camille Sullivan.
Camille Sullivan.
So she's actually she's probably one of the biggest names in sort of cabaret now.
Yeah.
She's very much about storytelling through song and all this kind of stuff. And it was a really, really special performance. But as Rosie said, it was a special performance in a sort of slightly dingy, at the time, smoky pub basement.
Wet on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Sticky floors. And the music and the performance was so kind of sort of transportive, it really took you somewhere. And I think we both, as Rosie said, we both kind of dreamt of a place where that sort of music would find its home and would kind of fall in with everything else, with the atmosphere, with the drinks, with the menu and all that kind of thing. And as Rosie said, that's kind of where the kind of germ of Nightjar was laid, this idea of a really authentic experience that kind of hark back to the times before PA systems, before gramophones, where if you were in a bar and drinking and there was to be music, it was someone on the stage with a piano, a clarinet, or what have you. And I don't know, certainly for me, I think for Rosie as well, that there's something about that kind of those scratchy old records, the Billie Holidays, the Bessie Smiths, the Count Basies, that to me it takes me away just to listen to it. And so, Nightjar's kind of where does it take us to?
Yes, exactly. And you know how I feel about Nightjar, that I also had this dream, wouldn't it be great if I could find a place that was like this. And of course, you know how I feel about Nightjar and Oriole as well. So you had this idea, but then you said after university, people get regular jobs.
Yeah.
So what were you doing? Art? Were you finding your way?
I do what all people who do history of art
dream
of, and I went to work at an auction house.
Oh, right.
And I sort of moved up in management there, but I was maybe there for about sort of 3.5 years before I decided to go and work with artists. No, actually, at that point, we decided to do Nightjar, didn't we? Well, what would become Nightjar.
So it opened in 2010 because it's its 15th anniversary, but kind of how many years before that was this?
It was 2008 when we decided if we're not going to do it now, we're never going to do it.
What year did you start working after university? 2004?
05.
2005. I had been working since 2004.
04? No, 04. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so 2003. I left a year before him. So, so I had become kind of disenchanted with working at Christie's. It's a bit like, well, once you've worked here, where do you go? And then we just said to each other, why? And Edmund was working at Freud Communications, and then
so they're kind of a corporate. Well, they're a communication specialist, and I was in their corporate department. Very interesting job, but not one that I didn't find particularly fulfilling. And so I think in 2006 I moved to do Teach First, which is like Teach for America in the UK. So I went to be a teacher and learn that on the job for a couple of years.
Where in the States?
No, it was in the UK, in London.
I thought you said America. Sorry.
So Teach First. So Teach for America was the US program, and the idea is tends to put graduates or recent graduates into really challenging school situations to kind of try and be inspiring or be inspired and give education at the very sharp end a go. And so I did that for 2 years. And at the end of that, I think having worked very, very hard, I kind of felt like, wow, this is, if it's going to get this intense, then, we should probably be putting this amount of effort into our own dreams.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of bit the bullet at that stage and thought, right, whatever happens for the next couple of years, we're going to try and get this thing off the ground.
And I think, and then we were like, well, we better get some jobs, part-timey jobs, while we're waiting for this thing to happen. And then it kind of took a while, didn't it?
Yes,
and I went to work with helping artists make work for a publicly funded organisation, and also did an MA in creative production for live performance, because, the whole live performance thing was new to me, like programming it all. And Edmund went to work at Shoreditch House to learn bartending.
So I wanted to know a little bit about what actual, proper hospitality and so on. I've worked in pubs and that sort of thing previously. So I had an idea. I knew that I enjoyed serving people, but we wanted to bring this to a high level. So I went to work in Soho House Group to kind of see, I think, the best and the worst of what hospitality can be. And also did a little bit of supply teaching on the side.
Obviously, it didn't put you off, which is good.
No. But I think, when it comes to opening a bar, especially when we looking back, we were absolutely total ingenue. Like we had very, very little idea of what we were doing. And finding the right site can take a very, very long time. Yeah. And once you found the site, actually negotiating with the landlord and getting all of your ducks in a row. The process probably took the best part of 2 years.
Now, before that, were there certain bars that you absolutely loved in London that you were inspired by, or you really said, okay, we already have our ideas, we know exactly, did you have that vision already?
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, I think for my purposes, I mean, we liked going out and eating and drinking and, and drinking cocktails and things, but I wasn't connected into the scene. We just had, for my purpose, it was just, this was a place that didn't exist that we wanted to create. And so, it was not, I think I was pretty green at that point.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think there are a few bars that are still around now. So, for example, like Freud, which I think is still got a little basement cocktail den. Uh-huh. Yeah, that was a place that felt very, very cool. And then as we got closer to actually making it happen and started, trying to leverage what contacts we did have in the drinks industry, we were kind of taken to places like
Montgomery Place.
And Montgomery Place, which at the time was a really iconic bar. El Camion, of course, another place that was around back then.
Milk and Honey.
Milk and Honey, of course. So, we did get a little bit of a baptism into a Lounge Bohemia. That's another one I think is still open as well. But,
it's so funny you should say that. That is one of when I first started getting in, even though I loved going to bars all the time, someone booked that for their birthday and I was just blown away. And yes, I do walk by it sometimes and I'm talking like early 2000. I don't even know when it opens. Like obviously between 2008 and 2010 because you guys were there too. Yeah. It's a long time ago. And I remember one drink was candy floss. Yeah. The guy was really, really creative.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, right. Yeah, but he's still around doing like cocktail tasting menus and experiences and stuff like that, which is, quite a testament to his creativity. But
and
I think,
did you think, because you're number one, I have to give a shout out. We've just had the top 500 bars, and you are in the top 100, number 71, and your other bar is number 92. And considering you started so long ago to be in that top 100. I mean, congratulations. It's a testament to what you've done. But your cocktails, obviously, for being on this list and lists, the whole show could be about me listing how many awards you guys have won. But that, maybe I'm moving too far ahead, but the cocktails themselves and the quality of cocktails, was that something that you kind of thought of, found yourself thinking about at Shoreditch House and going, wait a sec, they have to be at a certain level?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there was a good level of cocktails at Shoreditch House, but I think it was, they tend to be aimed at quite a wide audience. But back in those times, 2008, 2009, I think the sort of the vintage cocktail revival was in full swing. People were finding books out there, that dated back 100 years, 120 years, and that kind of full spectrum of cocktail history was really opening up to people. And I think we found that we got some of those things like Ted Hayes' Vintage Spirit and Forgotten Cocktails and Imbibe by Dave Wondrich. And these kind of like seminal books that kind of opened up cocktail history were very inspiring to us.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. We were looking, we were looking for someone who could sort of deliver all of that. And then I don't want to jump too far into it, but we, on one of our trips around London, trying out cocktail bars and things, we were introduced to Marion Beck, who was our first bar manager, and then he really raised the game. I mean, he took the brief.
He blew the doors off, you could say.
Yeah. So was he one of our chief skills, actually, and maybe of any entrepreneur is finding great talent and,
And bringing them on
bringing
board.
them on board.
Yeah.
Keeping them on board. And
Yeah.
we've had lots of incredibly talent. I mean, that's what we're in the business of, is managing incredibly talented people. He was the first.
Yeah, I think the initial brief for the menu is the same concept that it is now, which is like a trip through cocktail history. Taking you all the way back to pre-Prohibition, Jerry Thomas era, and before to the present age. And so that was the idea. We always have these little sections, like an anthology. But I think at the time, I think our idea would have been to cleave a little bit closer to the original recipes, and it was Marion who's like, yeah, that's fine, but what if we reimagine these drinks? What if we put in homemade ingredients that give them a unique touch, and Marion is the king of the garnish.
Yes, your garnishes were very famous. They still are very famous.
Yeah, exactly. And so just putting that extra layer of experience on top of them, which I think really helped to set us apart in those early years.
Yeah.
And with the music, talk me through, even finding all the people. Was there a massive amount, or you have to do a lot of research into, trying to find people? Or was it just like, oh my God, there's a place now, so all of these acts can finally have a home?
Well, yeah, no, you do actually have to put quite a lot of legwork into it. But then, like anything, once you've sort of done that, then it starts to bear fruit. And so there were lots of places that were open around then that aren't now. I'm thinking of Last Days of Decadence down in Shoreditch, and
Volupte.
Proud Cabaret and Volupte, where they were kind of these alternative styles of. I mean, we were thinking about cabaret back then as well, because that was part of the old scene in the 20s and 30s. So we were looking at all different types of acts, and also Ronnie's Upstairs, the kind of fringe places. And so we just went to those gigs and introduced ourselves and met people. And then once you've got, a kind of flow of people, then word gets around and you get introduced. And sometimes you'll see a guy that from one band turn up in another. That happens a lot. Because actually what we do, this sort of vintage popular music, is pretty small scene, actually, of very dedicated, passionate creative people, so everyone passes on the word. And we love music, we grew up in musical families, we prize it very highly for different styles. Edmund's father and mum he had classical musicians, professional musicians in his lineage. We're very much popular Irish music and country music in my family, playing all the time.
Meet in the middle with jazz.
And so we come from different worlds musically, but we have great respect for musicians, the hours of work it takes to get that good and to be able to perform. So everyone, we treat people well, including our musicians, and then that bears fruit, really. People keep coming back and passing the word on.
Yeah, I think Rosie's not giving herself enough credit in terms of building up the roster of musicians, because it was a big job at the beginning.
It was a big job,
them.
and I've had great people join, people who've been in general management who then come to help in events, and a girl I'm thinking of now at the moment, Natalia, has been brilliant, and there's a new girl helping us, Mimi, so, it's team effort, really, at this stage. Yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
It's a small world, the vintage jazz musician scene in London. So like a lot of people play in each other's bands, and I think if word gets out that there's a place that is good to play, it's going to treat you fairly and pay you properly, then quite quickly you start to get inquiries.
Yeah, and to be treated nicely and respectfully and all those sorts of things. So
Now, let's go before there was a reputation. Like that, when you're opening these doors in 2010, did you have like 6 months worth of people on hold to play just in case it worked? When you jumped in, what was it like? Tell me about that experience.
Back through the
back 15 years.
I think that probably we did what everyone does, over-program it, and then like, oh God, we don't have enough people, because we run a cover charge base which was an American formula, actually. We'd been to New York to understand how people manage, these kind of live music gigs and things, and there were lots of different styles. one was you pay $20, you have a drink that pays for the band, and then and it's a 2-drink minimum or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like Village Vanguard.
Yeah, exactly. So that, because nowhere else really did it like that. It was either a lounge bar where the music, or like a hotel bar where the music is paid for. So,
or Ronnie's, where you've got to be completely quiet.
Yeah.
And you pay 45, 50, 60, 70 quid for a ticket, and it's all about music, and everything else is like an afterthought.
So that was a new way of doing things, and so there was a bit of spoon feeding people initially, because they're like, what is this? We don't really know what this is. But we over-programmed it. Then we didn't have enough people coming in, obviously, because it was a new bar. And then you're like, cancel a few, move things around, whatever. So I think, from memory, we had people on Thursday, Friday, Saturday initially, and that was reasonably busy. And then later, as the demand grew, we'd have, and we knew that we could pay people. We put people on through the week.
Yeah.
I think it was steady growth, really.
Did you find that there was? Did you find that there were people? Like, it was busy from the beginning? Did people know about you?
I think I remember there being a big, great press night and lots of, hype. When you're like a great first 2 nights or something, and then third night is like not as busy, and you're like, And certainly I remember our GM at that time, Becky, who also gone on to work in music programming in London and things. She would do a Tuesday night by herself on the floor. And so it must have been about 30 people.
We used to do the nights up by ourselves as well.
Oh yeah, we used to do them as well. Sorry, I mean, in the first year we worked outrageous amount of hours. But then I think probably after year one, every bar needs about a year for critical mass. Maybe a bit longer at the moment, but after year one, I think, and I think we were named in class, weren't we?
Yeah, we won the Best New Bar in Class awards and a couple of other things that I think there was just a bit of hype around us started to build.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually much better for hype to build 6 to 8 months in rather than just as you're opening, because even the most seasoned operator is going to make a lot of mistakes in their first few weeks or months of opening a bar. There's every new site brings new problems and new things you haven't thought about. So I think in some ways that was timed quite well, because it meant that when people started coming down in their droves, we were relatively ready to accommodate them and get the drinks out fast and make sure the experience was really good. So it became quite a few years of just being completely packed every night. It was great.
And the cocktail menu, were there any surprises, like, this cocktail is so much more popular than we thought it would be, or no one's drinking this one? Did you, throughout these years, have you seen certain things come and go drinks wise?
I mean, I think we've always kind of done a sort of wide range of really fun, interesting drinks, and so I'm trying to think about drinks that have been misses that we might have not expected. I think whenever in the days of Marion, we had 48 drink menus, so there were certainly some drinks that didn't quite catch people's imagination, or didn't get ordered quite as much.
That's a big menu.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I mean,
and everything
honestly,
was homemade, and
that's a huge menu of signature cocktails. And if someone is, and all the other people who are just ordering, like, could I have a martini or something?
Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, we had very little proper prep space. Yeah, everything was done à la minute in those days. Very little pre-batching, very little storage. I mean, looking back, I think the only way that it was made to work was by everyone working themselves to exhaustion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those were there was lots of practices like well-being and carefully managed rotas and all that sort of stuff has come into play. But I'm always surprised by how one of our top performing drinks, and we keep it on for this reason, is the London Mule, which is essentially a gin mule, a long refreshing drink, and it's there's, I think it says something about people's tastes, right? That that sometimes they're coming just for what they know and what they love, and there are classics for a reason, and that's sort of quite a comforting thing. And then people also like the sort of show-stopping ones, like drinking from a shell, the sort of things that feel quite sensual and make great pictures,
I mean, there's four drinks that have more or less, in one iteration or other, been on the menu for the whole 15 years. There's the London Mule that Rosie mentioned. There's the Zombie, the barrel-aged Zombie, which, you know, is not only very boozy and very fun, but has got this kind of re-fermented pineapple juice, which gives this lovely kind of like caramelized, deep flavour. We have the Toronto, which is a kind of old-fashioned twist, with a little bit of Fernet, which obviously bartenders love to have a bit of Fernet in there, and a fun presentation. And then the last one is named the Samurai, which is a Japanese whiskey-based drink, kind of a little bit of a riff on a whiskey sour type thing that we've had in one iteration or another the whole time. And I think for me, that's the thing that really has hit home over the years, is that actually, you know, we innovate and we change a lot, but to get through 15 years, what's really important is iteration rather than innovation. You know, like if you focus everything in being the most creative, the most innovative bar, which, you know, Nightjar might have been said to have been back in 2011 or 2012, at some point someone's going to come along and be more even innovative and more creative than you in the eyes of the world, and then all of a sudden the limelight's off you. So in terms of longevity and lasting, you know, I think what we found over the years is it's best to focus on the things that people come back for.
100%. You know, there's a couple sayings: if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Yeah.
There's that. But also, if you don't change, you die. So, you know, you've obviously gotten the right balance of that to still not only be here through COVID, but 15 years and still getting awarded, you know, so that you obviously have such an instinct for these things. But I would be remiss, I know we're talking about Nightjar, and it's all about Nightjar's 15th anniversary, but because I loved Oriole both in the old space and in the new space, you know, you have this wonderful bar. It's going well. Why were you crazy enough to start another one?
Good question.
But businesses sort of take on a life of their own, and we had loads of very, you know, qualified professional people, you know, in management who were keen to stay with the company, and so that gave us the you know, the bare bones of being able to start something else, and so it felt like a natural fit. We didn't at that time feel that another Nightjar was what was needed, and so we started looking for another venue, and then once you find the venue, it kind of has a feel of its own, and so we sort of started scouting around for a different bird and a different concept and things, and that was really how it happened. I mean, I think we started looking pretty early, maybe 2 years in, and it was another 5 years after opening. It was 2015 when we opened.
I mean, I think taking one's time over these things is good, because we looked at a lot of different opportunities, and I think, you know, there's two things there. As Rosie said, there's the fact that if you've got great people and they're kind of hitting the top of the ceiling in one organisation, you kind of want to give them the opportunity. But also, I think probably we are kind of entrepreneurs, and like once something is going well and there's cash being generated, you know, the question is what next? And you know, at that point we were in hospitality, you know, to our next, and so the logical progression is to find another, to find a new project to work on, and so Oriole came about like that, and we wanted, you know, obviously Nightjar is a sort of very sort of vertical, linear, historical theme. And with Oriole, we wanted to kind of make it more of a geographical thing, you know, about exploration, and with drinks that, rather than being, you know, inspired by time, to be inspired by place. Okay. So, the idea with the Oriole menu is that, you know, the core of each drink is a certain part of the world, whether that's the ingredient or the glassware or the cultural practices, you know, that inspire the drink. And that's how we create the menus at Oriole.
Now, when you heard that there was a space in Smithfield Market, were you like, oh my God, that's so cool, you know, we've got to see it? Because it was sad that you know, that they're closed Smithfield Market to redo it, but it must have been so cool. when you first saw it.
And we'd been to New York and been around the meatpack. We'd looked at a venue in the meatpacking district.
No way.
And I think that probably subconsciously we were like, oh, the meatpacking district of London, great. But also it was premium free. It had been a historical bar. It felt very much like London.
It had been a bar beforehand.
It had been a pub. Well, it was called the Cock Tavern, a very kind of legendary place where the kind of painters of the 1950s, Lucian Freud and his peers, and would kind of cross paths with the meat market workers who were coming off shift, and also the city boys who were having a breakfast before going into the city. So it was a real cross section of.
Its USP was it opened at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So you would get a real kind of smorgasbord of different people at 6 o'clock. You know, people kind of piling out of fabric and looking for a last drink, and like Rosie said, the city boys, the traders, the cabbies.
But by the time we'd taken, I mean, we inherited that license, but by the time we took it on, it had been, the glory days were well and truly over. So it felt exciting to give it new life, and.
I don't think we quite knew what we were biting off when we took on the site. When we went in, we just saw this huge site with loads of back of house, all the stuff. We didn't have a Nightjar. And we thought, wow, how amazing. Look at this great canvas that we can build on. But I think, what you don't realise is that, a big, empty, stripped out site is very, very expensive.
Very daunting, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it took us a long time and a lot of money to get it up and running.
I think we were undaunted. It was only once it was ready and we opened it, we were like, wow, this is really very big. And now we've got to fill it with people. But yeah, I mean, it lived there for 7 years until we were unfortunately asked to move along and make way for the Museum of London, which as London as you feel like, I'm happy with that. That's okay. But it took time to get going. But by the time we were asked to leave, it was in
full swing.
Full swing in one of our best performing bars. So it was very bittersweet.
I'm sure it was bittersweet for me too, being one of my favorite places. Now, Edmund, you said something about, oh yes, I guess we are in hospitality. I just want to return to that. That was kind of a little comment that you just said, but you obviously you are, it's 15 years since you are in hospitality. Do you like pinch yourself every day going, yes, it worked. We're so happy. This is, is it everything that you thought it would be?
I mean, I think
that's a big question. I know that's a big question to put you on the spot like that. Sorry.
On one side, absolutely. Like it's been a journey that's been full of joy and fulfillment and, making people happy, showing them a good time, accolades, travel,
I don't think we could have imagined just how amazing an experience it could have been. I think, we weren't really plugged into this whole world of drinks and brands and trips and all of that stuff and the kind of community of people. So in terms of that, and also the people who've worked for us who are our clients, all of that has been tremendous.
I think that's one thing we didn't see going in.
Yeah.
But also, over 15 years, and I think this 15 years in particular of history has been kind of full of black swans, Brexit, COVID, Ukraine, kind of big geopolitical humdingers that have changed, people's habits, have changed their finances, have changed, our workforce. And those have been very challenging things to navigate. And at the same time as well, the way that marketing happens, the way that, when in 08 and 9, 10, social media was still in its infancy, traditional press and communications was still the way that you would market a bar or hospitality. And so I feel like, although we've had constants that we've kept the same throughout, I think have kept those bars going and kept them, at the top of the tree or close to it, we've also had to adapt a lot in that time too.
Particularly in the last 5 years.
Are there any specifics you can share about how you've had to adapt?
I mean, I think COVID was just a series of adapting to different calls almost daily about numbers of people, whether you're open or closed. Lots of pivoting, as they like to say. But then I think, the knock-on effect of COVID and Brexit and everything that's happened since is that there's been behavioural change, people working from home, which obviously impacts how people socialise, or the spontaneity around socialising. And also the cost of living crisis, people not having the money to spend on going out. And I think cocktails are one of the first things, that kind of don't make the list because, people have to prioritise.
I think one thing that we've changed a little bit is sort of the management philosophy. And there's two reasons for that. The first is, I think, when we opened, the model of people who came to work for us, they were coming to work with like the maestri, with Marion Beck, with Luca Cinali, and it meant you got very motivated, very, very skilled people, but also just as in many, many kitchens with the great chef, people are sort of, there's an atmosphere where people are working very, very hard, but also kind of maybe being driven a little bit. And like they're very happy to do it, but maybe the conditions in the bar are not the way. People are working too many hours. Their work-life balance is being looked after. So I think there was that we felt had to change, especially as time goes on. And I think hospitality in many ways is a much better place to work than it was in 2010, because I think people are not afraid to ask for better conditions and more fairness and better work-life balance. And also, as time has gone on and we've had over the course of Nightjar's life, we have had other projects and business interests that have taken up some of our time. So it's been a case of having a team that's takes more responsibility, people stepping up with Swift and Bobby and Mia, for example. Obviously, we took on employee shareholders who really had a sense of ownership, and that's a model that we're replicating across the other bars as well now. And I think that's a real thing, because I think, when you've got 5 different bars, you can't give that level of attention that we did in those first years of Nightjar, where every detail was under our supervision. So I think that's something that we adapted quite a lot. And then I think marketing as well, like we spoke about, when we first started, it was all about Facebook, and then Instagram came along, and obviously Instagram is still a big thing. But, I think nowadays you've got to look across all platforms. You've got to think about your SEO. You've got to think about, deploying Google ads in the right way at the right time. All this kind of stuff. Like, it's a whole suite of things you've got to manage that we couldn't have even imagined back in the early days. So that's another thing that we've had to adapt a lot.
We're like 2-3 generations on now. So, we're like marketing to people who are, generally much younger than us. Yeah,
younger. Probably a bit less interested in, the kind of, the sort of, the geekiness of like booze and cocktails, more into like experiences as a whole. I think that's definitely something that we've seen change. And I think, in 2010 was a time of cocktail enthusiasts, and I think that we still get all those in cocktail enthusiasts coming through the door, but they're all like 10, 15 years older. So, how to engage with a new generation of drinkers and revelers is a question we're asking ourselves all the time.
Well, I think you've answered my last question, which was, what do you see for the future? But it's, I guess, engaging with the Gen Zs and whatever is coming along the way, and bringing them, how to bring them into this world that we love, and even interest them into the music that we love.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think so. I mean, I read a report recently that said that, in the last 3 or 4 years, something like £86 billion has been wiped off the value of the big 5, Pernod Ricard, Diageo.
Oh, geez.
They are noticing that they've got a challenge on their hands as well, in terms of engaging with the new generations who look at experiences in a slightly different way. I mean, I think, luckily there are still people out there who of a younger age who see what we do, and it you know, it really chimes with them, and we're very lucky for that. But I think certainly ways of connecting with those people and getting them through the door and getting them coming back is going to be a big question that we ask ourselves in coming years.
Yeah.
Well, you've been doing stuff right for 15 years. I don't doubt that for the next 15 years you will also be doing it right. Plus, you have some little ones who are growing up and they can say, Mom, Dad, no, we don't like it that way. We want it this way. So hopefully they can be sounding boards as well.
Our 12-year-old does try to give us business advice.
Yes,
so.
that's interesting. Although, to be honest, we should probably be he should at least be able to make us a good Bloody Mary by now.
Yeah, I know. We've really been
I
quite...
kind of picture, you know, Sunday morning. Oh, Dad, I made you
Wait. Was that what you were doing for your dad when you?
Actually,
You were
well,
butlering. You were butlering.
I did. I was called upon to buttle from an early age, for sure. And they can do that. They're quite good at that.
They are quite good. Yeah, they're quite good.
But yeah, cocktail making skills. No, that's not something. It was actually, I think, what inspired me to think that. There's a scene in Mad Men where Don Draper's daughter brings him a Bloody Mary in bed. So I think, I think if he has any interest in entering the family business, then it's probably quite a good start.
Yes, when he's of legal age, of course.
Of course.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really loved this chat. I got to learn so much more about you. And, you know, it was great to have you both on the show. So thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Really
We're happy to, nice to reflect back on all the years and everything we've learned. So thank you.
Absolutely. And hopefully I'll see you in one of your bars and we can cheers to the next 15 years.
Yes.
Here's to that.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.